Ali lived in a quiet neighborhood called Greenfield Lane. The houses were small but neat. The lawns were trimmed short, and the fences all looked freshly painted. It was the kind of place where everything had a rule. The homeowners association, known as the HOA, made sure of that. Ali liked peace and order. He followed the rules, paid his bills on time, and kept his yard clean. His small house had a narrow driveway that led to a tiny garage. He used that garage every day, not just for parking his pickup truck, but also for storing his work tools. Ali worked as a mechanic, and sometimes he fixed his neighbor's machines for free. It was Saturday morning, and the air smelled of freshly cut grass. Birds hopped on the fence while Ali carried a toolbox to his garage. He planned to fix his lawnmower and then visit his friend. But when he reached the door, he froze. A silver car was parked right in front of his garage door, blocking it completely. Ali blinked twice, thinking maybe the driver had just stopped for a moment. But the car was off-locked and empty. He could not move his truck in or out. He sighed and looked around. A woman in a bright yellow blouse stood nearby, holding a clipboard. She was talking on her phone, walking in circles and gesturing toward houses. She looked strict, like a teacher scolding her class. Ali walked toward her and asked politely, "Excuse me, is that your car?" The woman looked up from her phone. "Yes, it is. I'm with the HOA. I'm just doing my morning inspection." Ali tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, you're blocking my garage. Could you please move it? I need to get my tools out." She frowned and crossed her arms. "It's only for a short time. You can wait. I'm checking on some yard violations." Ali took a slow breath. He didn't like to argue, but this was his driveway. "I understand, but I really need to work now. It'll just take a second for you to move it." The woman shook her head. "I said it's fine. I'll move it when I'm done. Don't make a big deal out of nothing." Ali's jaw tightened. He wanted to say something sharp, but he stopped himself. He had seen her before. Her name was Karen. Everyone knew her. She was one of the most active HOA volunteers. She liked to tell people how to mow, where to park, and even what color to paint their doors. Karen waved her hand as if brushing him off and walked away toward another house, still talking on her phone. Ali stood there staring at her car, feeling helpless. He could not get into his garage. He could not even use his driveway. He thought about calling the HOA office, but it was the weekend. No one would answer. He turned around and went back inside, trying to stay calm. But the more he thought about it, the more annoyed he felt. He decided to do something else until the car was gone. He cleaned the porch, watered the plants, and tried to ignore the frustration building inside him. Every few minutes he peeked outside, but the car was still there. Hours passed. The sun rose higher and sweat ran down his back. He finally heard the sound of keys jingling. Karen returned, still talking on her phone. She opened the door of her car and looked at Ali with a small smile. "See? No harm done?" she said cheerfully as she drove away. Ali didn't reply. He only shook his head and went back to his garage. The next morning, the same thing happened again. Ali woke early for work. He had to leave by 8, but when he opened his garage door, there it was, the same silver car parked right in front of him. This time, he lost his patience. He took a picture with his phone and sent it to the HOA's online complaint portal. The message said, "The car blocking my garage again. Same vehicle as yesterday. Please take action." He waited all day but received no reply. That evening, when he returned home, the car was gone. But on his doorstep lay a letter. The HOA had sent it. It read, "Dear resident, your recent complaint about parking violations has been received. Please remember to remain calm and respectful toward our volunteers. HOA volunteers have the right to inspect properties during their rounds. We will review your message soon. Sincerely, Greenfield HOA Board." Ali could not believe it. The letter sounded like he had done something wrong. That night, while eating dinner, he told his neighbor Ben about the problem. Ben was a friendly man who worked in construction. Ben shook his head. Karen again. She's done that to a few people. Always says it's part of her inspection duties. She even parked in front of my gate last week." Ali rubbed his forehead. "She acts like she owns the place," Ben chuckled. "She thinks she does. But don't worry, buddy. You're patient. You'll find a way." Ali smiled a little. "I hope so." The next few days passed quietly. Karen didn't park in front of his garage. Ali thought maybe she had learned her lesson, but the peace didn't last. On Friday, just as Ali was returning home from a long day at work, he saw her car again, blocking his driveway. He stopped his truck and got out. Karen was standing near the car, writing something on her clipboard. Ali spoke firmly this time. "This is the third time, Karen. You can't keep doing this." She turned and said, "Relax, I'm the HOA inspector for this block. I can park here while I'm checking reports." "It's allowed." Ali pointed at the no parking sign on the fence. "It's not allowed in front of driveways." "That's the rule." Karen smiled coldly. "I make the reports, Ali. I know the rules better than you." That was it. He couldn't take it anymore. Ali went inside, grabbed a notebook, and began writing down every date and time her car had blocked him. He printed the photos he took and attached them. He made copies and slid them under his neighbors' doors. Within a day, several people signed a petition asking the HOA to stop Karen from blocking driveways during her inspections. On Sunday evening, Ali sent everything to the HOA board again. This time he attached all the signatures. He thought that would finally fix it. But on Monday morning, as he left for work, he saw something that made him laugh bitterly. Karen's car was parked in the same spot, across his garage. And this time, she had put a small paper on the windshield. It read, "Temporary HOA parking. Official use only." Ali stared at the note speechless. He couldn't believe her nerve. She had made her own parking permit. He took another picture and sent it to the HOA again. But he knew what would happen. They would take days to respond. Maybe weeks. Ali felt his anger turn into something calm and focused. If the HOA wouldn't help, maybe he would have to find another way. That evening, while walking past the local hardware store, he stopped. A forklift sat behind the glass window, freshly painted yellow, ready for rent. Ali stared at it for a long time. A small smile slowly formed on his face. He didn't plan anything yet, but the thought stayed in his mind. The machine could lift heavy items easily, even a car. When he got home, he looked again at the photos of Karen's car blocking his garage. Then he opened his notebook and started drawing something. Just a simple sketch of his driveway, the car, and the forklift. He wasn't planning to do anything rash. But he wanted to understand how the machine worked, how much it could lift, and what angle would be safe. It wasn't anger anymore. It was planning. Careful, calm, and determined. That night, the neighborhood was quiet. The streetlights glowed faintly. Ali sat by his window, watching Karen's car still blocking his garage. He whispered to himself, "If no one moves it, maybe I will." Then he closed the curtain and went to bed, with an idea growing in his mind. The next morning began like any other. The sun rose over Greenfield Lane, lighting up the quiet neighborhood. Birds sang in the trees, and the air smelled of dew and cut grass. But inside Ali's mind, there was no peace. He stood by his window, sipping tea, looking at the silver car once again blocking his garage. Karen's car. The same spot. The same problem. Ali's patience had limits, and this time it felt like she wanted him to break them. He sighed deeply and grabbed his phone. He sent another email to the HOA, attaching all the photos again. Then he called the office. A tired voice answered. "Greenfield Homeowners Association, this is Tom speaking." Ali knew that name. Tom was the HOA manager. "Hello, Tom. This is Ali from Greenfield Lane, house number 7. I've sent you several emails about a car blocking my garage. It's happening again right now. Can you please do something?" There was a short silence, then Tom said, "Oh yes, I saw those emails. We're still discussing it. These things take time. You know how the board is." Ali tried to keep calm. "Tom, this is the 5th time. I can't use my garage. She says it's HOA business." Tom gave a small laugh. "Ah, that must be Karen. She's one of our most active members. I'm sure she doesn't mean to cause trouble. She'll move it soon." Ali's voice grew firm. "She leaves it there for hours. It's not fair." "I understand," said Tom. "But we can't get involved in small disputes unless there's a safety issue. Please be patient." The line went dead. Ali placed the phone on the table and sat down. He stared at the wooden floor for a long time. The words, "be patient," echoed in his mind. He had been patient for weeks. Nothing changed. He looked again at the drawing he made the night before, the driveway, the silver car, and the forklift. It had started as a silly idea, but now it looked less like a joke and more like a real solution. Ali smiled faintly. "If no one helps me, I'll help myself." That afternoon, he visited the local equipment yard. The place smelled of oil and dust. Machines of all kinds stood in rows: tractors, lifts, and forklifts. The owner, a friendly man named Greg, greeted him. "Looking for something specific?" Greg asked. Allie nodded. "Yes, I need to rent a small forklift for a day. I do light work at home, and I might need to lift some heavy boxes." Greg showed him a compact forklift, yellow with black stripes, strong enough to lift a car if needed. "This one's easy to handle," Greg said. "You'll need to sign the safety form, and you must promise to use it carefully. No rough lifting, no dangerous tricks." Allie smiled. "Of course, I just want to move some equipment safely." After signing the papers, he arranged to pick it up on Saturday morning. He wanted the street to be quiet when he used it. When he walked back home, the silver car was still there. Karen wasn't around. Maybe she had gone for another inspection. Ali looked at the car for a long moment. The sunlight reflected off its shiny surface. It looked untouched, peaceful, and completely out of place in front of his garage. He whispered, "You've been parked there for the last time." That evening, Ali knocked on his neighbor Ben's door. Ben was sitting in his front yard fixing a chair. "Hey, Ali," Ben said. "Still having trouble with that car?" Ali nodded. "Yes, and I'm planning something. Nothing dangerous. Just something she'll remember." Ben raised his eyebrows. "What are you thinking?" Ali leaned closer and whispered his plan. Ben laughed so hard that he almost dropped his hammer. "You're joking, right?" Ali shook his head. "No joke. I'll be careful. I've checked the forklift's load capacity. It can lift her car easily, and my garage roof can handle the weight for a short time. I'll just make a platform. It'll be safe." Ben stared at him. "That's crazy, but I like it. If you pull this off, the whole street will talk about it for years." Ali smiled. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want her to understand that she can't ignore others." Ben nodded. "Need a hand?" Ali hesitated, then said, "Yes, I'll need someone to help guide the forklift and take photos for proof, just in case the HOA questions it later." Ben agreed without thinking twice. "I'll be there, buddy." For the next few days, Ali prepared carefully. He measured the height of his garage and reinforced the roof with 2 thick planks. He built a small wooden platform using sturdy beams. He tested it with heavy boxes until he was sure it could hold the car safely. Each evening, when Karen's car appeared, he would quietly take pictures, adding to his growing collection of evidence. On Friday night, he could barely sleep. His mind kept replaying the plan. Every sound outside made him look through the curtain. The streetlights glowed faintly. Karen's car was there again, blocking his garage like always. He whispered, "Tomorrow morning you'll move, one way or another." Saturday arrived clear and bright. The sun painted the houses golden. Ali drove to the equipment yard and brought the forklift home. He parked it behind his fence, out of sight. Ben arrived soon after with coffee and a camera. "Ready for the big day?" he joked. Ali nodded. "Let's just do it safely." They both checked the forklift's controls. Ali tested the forks by lifting a few crates. Everything worked smoothly. The silver car was still there, parked exactly where it shouldn't be. No one was inside. Ali looked at Ben. Time to begin. He drove the forklift forward slowly. The machine hummed quietly, steady and powerful. The forks slid under the front bumper of the car. Ali made sure the balance was perfect. Ben stood nearby, filming everything. "Easy now, a little higher," he said. The car began to rise inch by inch. The tires left the ground. It felt almost unreal, a car lifting like a toy. Ali's heart pounded, but his hands were steady. He had practiced this in his mind all week. When the car was a few feet off the ground, a voice suddenly shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" It was Karen. She had just come around the corner, holding her clipboard and looking shocked. Ali turned the forklift off and faced her calmly. "Good morning, Karen. I'm just moving your car away from my garage." Karen's eyes widened. "You can't do that. That's my car." Ali pointed at the no parking sign. "And that's my garage. You've blocked it 5 times this month." Karen's face turned red. I'm with the HOA, you're breaking the rules. Ben couldn't help but laugh. You mean the rules you keep ignoring? A few neighbors had come out of their houses. They stood on the sidewalk, whispering to each other. Some of them were filming too. Ali turned the forklift back on. The machine hummed again. He raised the car a little higher, just enough for everyone to see he was serious. Karen shouted, "Put it down right now." Ali looked at her calmly. "Don't worry. I'll put it down safely on the roof." The crowd gasped. Karen froze. "You wouldn't dare." Ali smiled lightly. "Watch me." He moved the forklift slowly forward. The car balanced perfectly. Ben guided him, shouting small directions. "Left a little. Okay, stop. Now lift." The front of the car rose above the garage edge. Ali positioned it over the wooden platform he had built. With a soft hum, he lowered it down until the wheels rested safely on the flat surface. The car sat there unharmed but completely out of reach, right on top of the garage roof. For a moment there was silence. Then the neighbors burst into laughter. Karen stood there speechless, staring at her car. Her clipboard slipped from her hands. Ali stepped out of the forklift, dusted his gloves, and said calmly, "Now it's not blocking anyone." Ben chuckled and said, "Well done, my friend. That's one way to solve a problem." Karen pointed a trembling finger at Ali. "You're going to regret this. I'm calling the HOA. I'm calling the police." Ali nodded politely. "Go ahead. I have all the photos, the videos, and the emails I sent. I've been patient long enough." Karen stormed off, shouting into her phone. The neighbors cheered softly, clapping their hands. Ali looked up at the silver car shining on his roof in the sunlight. It looked like a strange piece of art, peaceful, balanced, and completely out of the way. He turned to Ben and smiled. "I told you it would fit perfectly." Ben laughed. "You're a legend, Ali." As the crowd slowly went back to their houses, Ali stood quietly, watching the car. For the first time in weeks, his driveway was clear. He knew there would be calls and questions, but right now he felt free. And finally heard. Morning sunlight spread over the quiet neighborhood. Birds sang, children walked to school, and the streets looked calm again, except for one house. In front of that house, a small crowd had gathered. Phones were out, cameras were rolling, and voices whispered with excitement. Karen's red car still sat on top of the garage roof like a bright cherry on a cake. Some people thought it was a prank, others thought it was art, but everyone agreed it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. Tom came out of his house holding a cup of coffee, pretending to be calm. He looked at the car on the roof and then at the growing crowd. Inside, he was half nervous and half proud. Across the street, an old man laughed so hard he nearly spilled his morning tea. "That's the best thing I've seen in years," he said. About time someone did something about her. A few neighbors clapped when they saw Tom. Someone shouted, "Hey, forklift man." And everyone laughed. Tom smiled a little and gave a small wave. Then a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped Karen, wearing sunglasses and looking furious. Her face turned red the moment she saw her car on the roof. She pointed at Tom and shouted, "This is destruction of property." "I'll call the police." Tom took a sip of his coffee. "You already did," he said calmly. "They were here earlier. They said they'd send an investigator." Karen stomped toward him, her heels clicking on the pavement. "You think this is funny?" she shouted. Tom shrugged. "Not really, but maybe now you'll think twice before blocking someone's garage." Karen's voice went higher. "You'll pay for this. I'll have the HOA fine you until you're broke." Before Tom could reply, a young man with a camera came running up. Sir, I'm from Channel 5 News. Can we talk to you about what happened?" Karen froze. "What? No. There's no story here." But it was too late. The news reporter smiled. "Oh, there's a big story here. Forklift man versus HOA lady. It's already all over social media." Tom blinked. "Social media?" The reporter nodded. "Someone filmed you lifting the car last night. The video has over 2 million views this morning." Tom's mouth fell open. 2 million? The young man nodded again. "You're famous, sir. People are calling you a hero for standing up to the HOA." Karen's eyes widened. "Hero? He broke the law." The reporter turned to her. "Ma'am, would you like to share your side?" Karen turned pale. Cameras surrounded her and a few people from the crowd laughed. Someone shouted, "Hey Karen, next time park right." Tom quietly walked back to his porch and sat down, sipping his coffee again. The chaos continued outside, but he stayed silent. He didn't plan for this to happen, but now that it did, he wasn't sure what to do. After a while, the police arrived. Officer Reed, a calm and friendly man who knew Tom for years, stepped out of his car. "Morning, Tom," he said. "Quite a situation here," Tom nodded. "Morning, officer. I didn't think it'd go this far." Reed looked at the car on the roof and chuckled. "Honestly, I've seen worse. You didn't damage it, right?" Tom shook his head. "Nope," lifted it carefully. "Not a single scratch." The officer turned to Karen. "Ma'am, can you confirm there's no damage to your vehicle?" Karen folded her arms. "That's not the point. He humiliated me." Officer Reed sighed. "Ma'am, it's a civil matter. If your vehicle isn't damaged, then you'll need to handle it with the HOA, not us." Karen was speechless. "You're not arresting him?" Reed smiled politely. "For what? He didn't harm anyone, and your car seems fine. But you did block his garage, which is against parking laws." The crowd gasped. Karen's jaw dropped. "You're joking." "I'm not," Reed said. "You'll get a parking citation. And I suggest you get a tow company to help get your car down." Karen turned red again and stormed off, yelling into her phone. Tom leaned back, watching quietly. The crowd slowly started to leave, laughing and chatting about what they had seen. Some shook his hand before leaving. A few even asked for selfies, calling him the forklift hero. By evening, Tom's phone was flooded with messages. Old friends, co-workers, even his cousin from another city, all sent links to the video. He clicked one of them. The title read, "HO Lady Gets a Lesson from Forklift Man." The video showed him lifting the car while Karen screamed in the background. The comments were full of laughter and cheers. Finally, someone stood up to these HOA bullies. "Legend. Forklift Man saves the day." Tom laughed softly. He didn't mean to be a hero. He just wanted peace in his own home. Later that night, as he sat in his garage cleaning tools, he heard a knock. It was a young woman from the neighborhood, Mia, who worked at a local newspaper. "Hi, Tom," she said kindly. "I'm writing an article about what happened. But I wanted to ask, why did you really do it?" Tom smiled. "It wasn't revenge," he said. "I just wanted my space back." "Everyone should respect others' space," Mia nodded. "That's a good message. I think people need to hear that." When she left, Tom felt a strange peace inside. He had made his point, not with anger, but with action. The next morning, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Karen stood there, still angry, demanding punishment for Tom, but the other members looked uncomfortable. One of them said, "Karen, this whole situation has made us look bad. Maybe we need to change some rules about parking." Karen glared at him. "So you're taking his side?" The man sighed. "We're taking the side of common sense. You shouldn't have blocked his garage." Karen stormed out again, muttering angrily. That night, Tom looked out at his garage. The roof was empty again. The tow company had finally removed the car, but the memory of it stayed. He smiled softly. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. He had reminded everyone that sometimes standing up for yourself doesn't need shouting. Just a little cleverness and a forklift. And across the street, as the evening wind blew through the quiet neighborhood, laughter could still be heard. People would talk about this for months. The legend of Forklift Man had begun. Tom's story had traveled far beyond his small town. Within 2 days, the internet crowned him a quiet hero. People shared his video on news pages, podcasts, and even late-night talk shows. Someone made a cartoon of him driving a forklift with the title, "Neighborhood Justice." Tom didn't enjoy attention, but it followed him everywhere. People waved when he went to the store. A child pointed at him once and said, "That's Forklift Man," and his mother laughed. At first it felt good, but fame came with noise. His phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists called. Companies offered free tools. Even the Forklift brand reached out asking if he would do an ad. Tom said no to everything. He just wanted peace. Across the street, Karen watched all this from behind her curtains. Her anger burned every time she saw him smiling. The HOA had refused to punish Tom, saying the incident was unfortunate but creative. Karen felt humiliated. The world saw her as a joke. She sat in her living room surrounded by papers, muttering, "He thinks he can win? We'll see about that." That evening, she called an emergency HOA meeting again. Only a few members came, but she slammed her folder on the table. "We must take action. If we let this slide, our authority means nothing. One of the older members, Mr. Nolan, sighed. Karen, people are tired. This has gone too far. Let it end, Karen leaned forward. No, I have a plan. If we can't punish him directly, we can fine him for violations. His grass, his mailbox, his driveway color, everything. He'll pay for what he did. Another member frowned. That's petty. She smiled coldly. It's legal. The next morning, Tom found an envelope taped to his door. It read, Notice of violation. Grass length exceeds HOA standards. He blinked. Grass length? He measured. It was barely half an inch taller than usual. He shrugged and cut it shorter. The next day, another notice appeared. Mailbox not painted the approved color. He laughed. It's been this color for 5 years. But he repainted it anyway. Then came another. Garage door slightly off shade. It continued for a week. Every day a new fine. He could feel what was happening. Karen was trying to push him. His friend Mark came by and said, She's messing with you, Tom. Don't let her win. Tom sighed. I'm not giving her more fuel. If I fight back now, she'll just twist it. But Karen didn't stop. She printed flyers claiming Tom was a danger to the neighborhood. She told people he lifted cars for fun. One afternoon, a reporter came again. Tom, what's your reaction to the HOA's new campaign? Tom looked tired. No reaction. I just want peace. That evening, Tom sat in his garage thinking. The smell of oil and iron surrounded him. His forklift stood quietly in the corner, the machine that had caused all this. He didn't regret what he did, but he didn't want war. He opened his laptop and wrote an email to the HOA board. I believe in community rules. I followed them for years, but what's happening now isn't about rules. It's about revenge. I'll follow any fair standard, but please remember, respect goes both ways. He sent it and closed his computer. 2 days passed without a reply, but something strange began happening. Neighbors started talking again. Only this time, they were talking about Karen. People whispered about how she kept targeting Tom. One neighbor, Mia, wrote an article titled When Power Becomes Personal. It spread fast. The HOA's inbox filled with angry messages from residents demanding fairness. During the next HOA meeting, the room was packed. Karen entered confidently, holding her papers, but she froze when she saw the crowd. Tom sat in the back quietly, wearing his work jacket. He didn't speak. Mr. Nolan cleared his throat. We've received many complaints about how the rules are being used. Karen frowned. Rules are rules. He broke them. A woman stood up. No, you're using them to attack him. He's a good man. Another man nodded. You fined him for his mailbox. Next, you'll fine us all for breathing wrong. The room murmured with agreement. Karen tried to regain control. He lifted a car onto a roof. That's dangerous. Mr. Nolan sighed. Yes, but you parked illegally first. You blocked his garage and refused to move. We must admit, both sides made mistakes. But this campaign of fines is not acceptable. Karen's face turned pale. You can't do this to me. We can, Nolan said firmly. Effective immediately, you are suspended from HOA leadership until further notice. The room went silent. Karen stood frozen, speechless. Then, without another word, she grabbed her papers and stormed out. After the meeting, several neighbors came to Tom. They smiled and shook his hand. You handled it well, one said. No shouting, no anger. You just stood your ground. Tom smiled politely. Sometimes silence works better than shouting. When he reached home, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. The sky was clear and a soft breeze blew through the trees. Later that night, as he sat on his porch, Mia came by again with her camera. Tom, your story's become something bigger, she said. People see it as a stand against unfair authority. He shook his head. I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted my space. I know, she said, but sometimes simple acts show people how to draw lines. He nodded slowly. Maybe, but I hope this ends soon. The next morning, Tom woke up to another surprise. This time it wasn't a notice or a fine. It was a small letter from the new acting HOA head, Mr. Nolan. Dear Mr. Tom, we want to apologize for the recent events. The HOA will remove all unfair fines placed on you. We're also considering new parking guidelines to avoid future disputes. Thank you for your patience and calm during this difficult time. Tom smiled when he read it. Finally, things were returning to normal. But across the street, Karen wasn't finished. She sat by her window, staring at Tom's house. Her suspension had humiliated her again. Her anger was now colder, quieter but stronger. She whispered, "You think you've won, forklift man? Just wait." She opened her laptop and typed something quickly. That night, Tom's video began spreading again, but this time with a new caption. "Local man endangers neighborhood with heavy machinery. Should this be legal?" Someone was twisting the story again. As Tom sat at his table sipping tea, his phone buzzed with new messages. He saw the post, saw the comments, and sighed. He knew exactly who was behind it. He looked out the window, across the street. Karen's curtains moved slightly. Tom whispered, "Round two, then." He stood up, calm as always, and went to his garage. The forklift's metal gleamed under the dim light. He ran his hand over its frame and smiled softly. He didn't plan to fight her the same way again. But if she wanted another battle, he was ready. The next morning, Tom woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing nonstop. His video had gone viral again, but this time for the wrong reason. News headlines called him reckless. People who once called him a hero now questioned his actions. He scrolled through the comments, shaking his head. Some people defended him, saying he was a calm and fair man, but others, fooled by the edited video, accused him of being dangerous. He closed his phone and took a deep breath. He had known this was coming. Karen was behind it. He could feel it. Tom walked outside. The neighborhood looked peaceful, but something had changed. The air felt tense. Across the street, Karen's curtains moved. She was watching him again. He gave a small wave, not angry, not mocking, just calm. She quickly moved away from the window. Tom went to his garage. The forklift stood there like an old friend. Its metal surface shone in the morning light. He ran his hand over it and said softly, "No more fights." That day he drove to work as usual. His co-workers greeted him with curious smiles. Some joked, "Hey, forklift man, lifting anything today?" He just smiled back. But when he returned home that evening, a surprise was waiting for him. Two reporters stood near his driveway holding microphones. "Mr. Tom," one said, "can we get your comment on the new video? The one showing the forklift incident?" Tom looked tired. "That video is edited," he said. "Someone cut it to make it look wrong." The reporter nodded. "Do you know who did it?" Tom smiled faintly. "Let's just say someone who still hasn't learned about peace." That short answer was enough. Within hours, people online began digging for the truth. Soon, someone found out that the edited video came from an account linked to Karen's name. By the next day, the internet turned again, this time against her. News pages corrected their stories. Posts appeared saying, "The truth behind the forklift man edit." Comments flooded in, supporting Tom once more. Karen, seeing all this, panicked. Her reputation was collapsing. She deleted her accounts, but it was too late. The community already knew. Meanwhile, Tom stayed silent. He didn't post or argue online. He just focused on his small repairs and peaceful evenings. One night, while fixing an engine in his garage, he heard a soft knock on the door. When he opened it, he found Karen standing there, holding an envelope. Her expression was tired and ashamed. "Tom," she said quietly. "Can we talk?" Tom nodded slowly. "Sure." She stepped inside and looked around. It was her first time seeing his workshop up close. The smell of oil and metal filled the air, but it felt peaceful. "I made a mistake," she said. "Actually, many mistakes. I shouldn't have parked across your garage. I shouldn't have spread lies. I was angry and I wanted revenge. But I see now it only made things worse." Tom looked at her calmly. "We all make mistakes," he said. "The important thing is what we do after." She handed him the envelope. "It's a written apology for the HOA and the neighborhood. I also stepped down from the committee." Tom took the paper but didn't open it. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Karen sighed. "Yes, I did. People are scared of me now. Maybe I should learn to live without control for a while." There was a long silence. The sound of the night wind filled the room. Finally, Tom said, "Karen, I never wanted to embarrass you. I only wanted you to move your car." She gave a sad smile. "I know, but I turned it into something ugly." "I'm sorry, truly," Tom nodded. "Apology accepted." She looked relieved. "Thank you." When she left, Tom stood quietly for a while, then sat down beside his forklift. He felt lighter than ever before. The long fight had finally ended. The next day, news broke again, but this time it was positive. A news story appeared online titled, "The Forklift Man and the HOA Lady, A Lesson in Respect." It told both sides fairly, ending with how they chose peace. The neighborhood started to change after that. People smiled more. The HOA rewrote some of its strict rules. Meetings became friendly instead of full of complaints. Tom became something like a quiet legend in town. People would still joke and call him Forklift Man, but now it meant something different. It meant fairness, cleverness, and peace. Even Karen changed. She started helping neighbors instead of ordering them around. She planted flowers near the community park and often waved at Tom when she saw him. One afternoon, months later, a school nearby invited Tom to give a short talk to their students. The topic was respect and community. He stood on the small stage, nervous but calm. The students looked at him eagerly. He began, "Sometimes people will test your patience. Sometimes they'll block your path. You can fight with anger, or you can act with calm and cleverness. I chose the second way." A student raised his hand. "Did you really lift a car onto a roof?" Tom laughed softly. "Yes, but that's not the important part. The important part is that we all learned something after," he continued. "We live together. That means we should respect each other's space even when we disagree. You don't need to shout or hurt anyone to make a point. You just need to stay calm, stand firm, and do what's right." When he finished, the room filled with applause. Afterward, a teacher came up and said, "You've inspired a lot of people, Tom. Not because of the forklift, but because you didn't lose your kindness." Tom smiled. "That's all I ever wanted." Later that evening, he returned home and sat on his porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and gold. Across the street, Karen was watering her flowers. She looked up, saw him, and waved. He waved back. For the first time, there was no tension between them. Just quiet understanding. As darkness settled, Tom looked at his forklift once more. He had cleaned it, fixed its small dents, and parked it neatly. It was more than a machine to him. It was a symbol, not of revenge, but of calm strength. He whispered, "Good job, old friend. We did what we had to do." The world around him was peaceful again. The neighborhood, that once buzzed with gossip, was now known for something else, a story of how one man with a forklift taught everyone that respect is stronger than power. And in the months that followed, whenever someone new moved into the community, they would eventually hear the tale. They'd ask, "Who's Forklift Man?" And someone would smile and say, "He's the man who taught us that peace sometimes comes with a little lift." The story ended not with noise or anger, but with laughter. Peace and the quiet sound of a forklift engine resting forever still in its garage.